You're listening to The Blind Chick, an AfterSight original podcast. We're telling you stories about strength, overcoming hurdles, and living experiences. We see who you really are. Blindness can be an adventure. Are you ready for the journey of a lifetime? We are.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Blind Chick. That's Moses Street.
And that is Penn Street, the blind chick.
Wah, wah, wah. Oh, my goodness. Well, Moses, gosh, the summer just seems to have flown by, and the older we get, the faster they fly. Do you have any, favorite special summer memory?
Oh, let's see. Well, my absolute favorite, I can't talk about because I never have kissed and told.
Oh, I see.
But aside from that, as a lot of people know, Colorado turns into one continuous music festival, and we were at a bunch of them, and those are always so wonderful.
Yes, that's funny. That's what I was going to say too.
I was going to ask you what it was. Like snowy grass, that is the best kept secret in Colorado. It is so good.
Yes, and that really is, Snowy Grass Festival is up in Estes Park at the beginning of the summer, and I always feel like that's sort of the kickoff of our summer. And then, of course, the Shine Festival. We cannot forget. Sean, what you're doing, girl, out there in the world is amazing. So we know you're a fan of the podcast. So give Sean a shout out for the Shine Festival, which, takes place at the end of August every year. And just look it up. We can't talk about it enough here. So, and speaking of Shine Festival, today's guest, we actually got to meet in person at the Shine Festival this year. And his name is Joel Schneider, and Joel is the executive director of Soul Dogs, Inc. And it is a nonprofit here in Colorado, and they're just doing so much amazing, incredible work with service dogs, and it's so neat that they're right here in our backyard. Joel, welcome to The Blind Chick.
I am very happy to be here. Thank you, Penn.
Joel.
Thank you, Moses.
Welcome. We're going to get right down to business. No softball questions, man. This is the real deal.
I'm ready. Hit me with them. Go for it.
Yes. So tell us about Soul Dogs, the when, the what, and the how of Soul Dogs.
The when, the what, and the how. I'm going to write down those three words just in case I forget. When, what, how. Here we go. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So when. So Soul Dogs, and this is actually great. I mean, Soul Dogs was established in 2019. We are a very young company in the realm of what we do in the IDD, or intellectual developmental disabilities field. We were founded by Chris Anderson, who in her experience working with the population, noticed the strong connection that a lot of the clients we serve have with animals, and how that connection can evolve into a better, feeling or motivation to participate when one is trying to heal their own trauma. The people we work with, people with disabilities, people with autism and everything else, I mean, a lot of these folks come from a traumatic background. It could be any number of things that have impacted them. But Chris noticed, just in having her own animals and kind of bringing them into therapy just as a way to soothe the people involved, that the people became more comfortable to share their experiences and try to develop from those experiences into, a better kind of functioning person, someone who is like, yes, this happened to me, but here's who I am now, and here is how I am working through this. So that's the basic idea for us. We want people to heal their trauma through their supportive relationship with an animal. We used to have a whole menagerie of animals. We had hedgehogs and bearded dragons and fish and bunnies and cats and all this. And we eventually decided to shift that focus down. It was always the plan just to work with dogs.
Wow.
Talking about animal-assisted therapy, talking about training dogs in basics such as, obedience and puppy classes and things like that. And then moving specifically in the idea of training service dogs and support animals, right? So that is what, the 5-year journey for Soul Dogs has been so far. It started off very simply as just therapy. And then it grew into day programming, and it grew into community programming, supported employment, the dog training academy, and then bam, we find ourselves here today working with dogs, with our clients, training these dogs, and hopefully turning them in the end into some really good service dogs for the people we support.
So where do you get the dogs from? Are you guys breeding them as well? Because I know I use a guide dog, and so I get my guide dogs through Guide Dog Foundation for the Blind in Smithtown, New York. No, they're not paying me to say that. It's just I'm really proud to be one of their students.
Good plug.
But like they most of the bigger guide dog schools have their own breeding program. What about you guys?
So for us, we're a very small nonprofit, right? Our first group of what we call soul dogs, right? Obviously, we call them soul dogs. So our first group of puppies came from a very well-renowned breeder of labs. It was a group of they came out in a multitude of colors, which I had never known before, that you can have a range of colored labs come out of a group of parents that might both be the same color. But we had a couple yellow labs, we had a black lab, and I think I think another yellow lab too. So we had I think we had 5 total soul dog pups at first. All of those pups, one reason or another, were either adopted by their foster and moved on, or were kind of enrolled in the program, but then decided to move on to other fields. Some were identified as being perhaps better at something that wasn't necessarily service. I know we eventually picked up a pair of German Shepherd pups. They were such adorable little balls of fur. And one of them went on to, I think, work in protection as opposed to service. And I think the other one was just adopted by someone's family, because it really is about making sure the dog has the appropriate temperament. Penn, as someone who has a guide dog, it couldn't be just any dog that became your guide dog.
Right, exactly.
Right? So we have to do kind of the same thing here. We have our current batch contains 2 cream retrievers that were donated to us by an amazing member of the community, Jill Dudgeon. I'll mention her name in case she happens to be listening. She donated to us absolutely free of charge. She became aware of the organization through Chris Anderson, really liked what we were doing, and she has a son in her life who also has disability, and she said, if this kind of helps create something that can support people with disabilities, I would love to be a part of it. So we got 2 brand new pups from her, and then Chris, on her own, bought 2 giant Schnauzer pups from a group up north called Boucher Family Farms that we actually do support employment with. Almost every single week. So we know them very well. And they have been breeding these giant Schnauzers for, I can't even say how long, but oh my God, they are gorgeous dogs.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. So it just depends. When you get these dogs from their puppy state, you can't tell their temperament and everything else right away. You got to work with them and see what happens. We're working with these dogs typically from that puppy play state. We bring them in, we try to do some trainings with them as they're a puppy, but they're puppies. It's more about the socialization piece. It's about kind of getting in the groove of being around people and introducing them to all the wonders of the world, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then just recently, as we crossed, I want to say maybe the 6-month mark, we evolved program, because now we're trying to work on the more strict kind of obedience and understanding simple tasks. So now it's all right. If the dogs have a vest on, guess what? No social time, no puppy play time. They're there to work, right? So, and it's a remarkable thing to see from the beginning. When I previously worked at Soul Dogs, I didn't have a chance to really see the evolution. I fostered one of the dogs. I'm bummed to say that unfortunately Riley did not become a service dog. She had some large fear things that developed while she was in training, but she is now my dog, and she is just an absolute radiant black lab of joy. She's adorable. But it was, for instance, right now, one of our cream retrievers, Tori, we have learned in the past, I think it was about 2 to 3 months ago, fantastic at detecting seizures before they come up.
Oh, wow.
So we have Tori working with our working dog coordinator, the leader of our dog training, Genevieve. Genevieve needs that kind of support. And this dog just melded into that support so seamlessly. So it was serendipitous, I think is the best way to put it. But it was great. And these other dogs, we don't know where they're going to go, but we're on this journey with them. We're helping to train people with disabilities how to train dogs while we have them. And if it comes down to where we just have 3 dogs that are great to adopt, then so be it. We will then look for another group of dogs to bring in and start from scratch again. I mean, that's awesome. No one hates puppies is the great thing. So everybody loves a good puppy.
And just to clear it up for me, is you're actually placing the dogs with these people?
Yeah. So again, because we don't know for sure where their proclivities or where their temperament kind of may lie as they age, it really is depending upon the staff that we have here. If they have an issue, perhaps it can go to a staff to be a long-term support for them. If we have a client that can benefit from one of these dogs, then by all means, our clients are going to get one of these dogs. As long as the dog is able to provide the service that is effective, because there's service, there's support, and of course then there's guide. Guide is a whole different field of dog, right? We don't do guide dog training, because my understanding from Genevieve is that's far more complex than kind of what we do on a day-to-day. But it really does come down to, hey, okay, this dog is through their training, they're at this stage. If we have someone they can support who is an attendee of our program, then by all means, they're going to get a service dog from us.
Wow.
Or they're going to get this support animal from us, right?
Well,
Go ahead, Penn.
I was going to ask you, what drew you to this work? Like what connection did you have originally, or how did you end up at Soul Dogs?
So my path to my current employment is a strange one, to say the least. So it's really strange. When I was younger, I did a lot of retail. My mom was a rescuer of animals in the grandest of ways. I remember as a child. Living in New York, my mother brought my sister and I at one point in time to a food and drug, like smaller kind of research facility. We weren't supposed to be there. We picked up some dogs while we were there. I'm not going to say whether or not it was illegal. I was a young child. I did not know what was going on. I do know that we ended up getting a new beagle in our family, who we ended up naming Research, who was allergic to everything on the planet. And my mom has been rescuing dogs off the street her entire life. Dog with a broken leg. Sammy was this giant, just white poodle, but had a leg that could never bend for the rest of his life due to an accident when he was a young dog. So my family has always rescued dogs. My mom is responsible for the buildup of a Humane Society in Fort Morgan, Colorado. That's where we moved out here from New York back in, mid-90s. So she has always been someone that has taught my sister and I, there's value in these animals. We love our dogs. And then, as I kind of started getting older and trying to figure out what I want to do with my life, I ended up working with higher education. I love supporting people in that, being a residential coordinator, working in the dorms, as they call them, and everything else.
Right.
And then I came back here, and after doing some time at Regis University, I was kind of lost, didn't know what I wanted to do. Some good family friends mentioned a place called Devereaux. They were looking for some direct care people to support, young people with mental health issues. And I said, you know what? I'll give that a shot. And I worked with the Division of Youth Corrections wing, known as Aspen. And I learned a lot, and then eventually worked with the Support and Employment Department at Devereaux. And I really started loving working with people with disabilities. Eventually, in my time there, I started working with Chris through another agencies with some of her clients. And Chris just loved the work I did. And from that point on, when she started Soul Dogs, she tried to recruit me one point in time, but I turned her down because I was working as a case manager with Imagine. I really liked the work I was doing. I liked what I was learning, especially. And then she was like, you know what? I want to try this again. I need a director for support employment. I was like, you know what? Let's do this. And I have not looked back since. This has been great. I mean, what we do here, it just fills you with just so much joy to see people kind of make that connection with an animal. It really is. It's inspiring. I love my work. Absolutely.
Well, do you keep up with the people after they have the dog and maybe share a success story or two?
I think most of the groups that we've had so far have been, like I said, they've been adopted by the people that fostered them. They just ended up really falling in love with the dogs. And when it came down to their training, these folks say, listen, I have to move away or I'm going to a different place. I will not be able to bring them to training. It was kind of like, well, we know the dog's being taken care of, so we'll just kind of separate and, fare thee well kind of a thing. So, in being a program that's only 5 years old and kind of the experience we've had so far with our pup groups, we don't have hey, we were able to transition this puppy to someone, they're really utilizing it. The best one I can think of right now is Tori, because Tori, even in her 10-month-old state, is signaling seizures and supporting someone with a disability. And
that's amazing.
That just happened, like I said, in the last 10 months. So we look forward to having far more stories. But, part of this, as we talked about before, is really discovering who these dogs are and where they can, I guess, appropriately serve is the best way to put it, right? But it's tough because you typically won't really see that, I guess, until maybe they're a year or so to kind of really get an idea of the dog and what they might really be able to help out in.
Is it like with the seizure dogs or the diabetic dog, that can sense somebody's low or high with their glucose, or whatever, like maybe it's a PTSD episode coming on or whatever. Do you see or feel or understand that the dogs, like you said, they seem to that's their superpower themselves versus training a dog. Like, okay, you're going to be, a seizure detection dog. Like, is that something you can teach a dog, or is it something that, like with Tori, that they sort of have to have that sort of built into their DNA?
Well, I mean, definitely with Tori, it was that superpower, right? So Tori, less than a year old, and this has been, I think, at least 3 months or so ago. So this is back when she was a 6-7-month-old dog, where we just happened to notice one day, unfortunately, when Genevieve had a seizure, that Tori was losing her absolute mind and not necessarily within eyesight of Genevieve to see what was going on. She just knew something was going on. So in regards to teaching something, I know there are some ideas that there's something that is given off or something else. I mean, and again, I'm not the dog training expert. That's more
right.
Genevieve's territory than anything else. But I think in certain situations, I believe that, because if it was an idea that you could only rely on a dog kind of having this ability innately, there'd be so few seizure detecting dogs out there.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but I believe that it is something that can be taught, and I imagine that must be some incredibly intense training, because my understanding is that this is typically something that's based upon scent, right?
Yeah.
That's always kind of what I've learned so far in seeing kind of how our dogs work and learning more about Tori and how things going on through. Somehow Tori already had the scent part really down, but dogs with their incredible noses and everything else, I believe they can be taught to detect those things based upon. I feel there's something specific that I can't recall the name of that comes off with.
It's like a pheromone or something. Right?
Yeah, something along those lines that can come off that, with some intense training, a dog can absolutely be able to detect, assuming they are of the right temperament and the ability to learn kind of that skill. It shouldn't be a problem to actually be able to train a seizure dog.
So this is one because it affects people with seeing eye dogs a lot, is when you have a comfort dog, you can't just take it anywhere, or can you?
Are you talking about when someone has what they call an emotional support animal, or just kind of just some? Yeah. I mean, that's always a hot button topic for the entire United States, right? Having, your emotional support animal and having someone that bought a vest and a tag online, all of a sudden they have a support animal, right? So, those are always the more complicated ones. When it comes down to emotional support, I mean, an emotional support animal can be a great boon, a great comfort to people. However, when we're talking about a service animal is actually specifically performing a task. A guide dog is absolutely performing a very specific task and very specific job, right? So when it comes to the emotional support side, we may have some of the dogs we have in our current group, I'm sure would probably make amazing emotional support animals. I mean, my own dog, Riley, who was part of the first Soul Dogs group, she can detect sadness and changes in mood so well. And then she immediately comes up to you with her ears crinkled and her big black eyes just staring into your soul. So it's something where it's a very easy item for I think folks to develop. But there does need to be a portion of kind of control, right? We don't want this dog is comforting to me, so I should be able to take this dog wherever I go. It's like, no, not necessarily. I mean, comfort can be found in many things. Just because you have attached your comfort to the animal does not mean that all of a sudden you are justified in bringing it wherever you want. I mean, the part that always kills me now in kind of being more involved in this process as executive director, seeing our dog trainers work, it irks me to see people that have a service dog training vest on an animal who is clearly not a service dog.
Don't even get me started. I mean, to me, all pets are emotional support.
Absolutely.
To me. I feel like you wouldn't have a dog if it wasn't emotionally supportive, right? I mean,
absolutely. You wouldn't have a dog that was a total pain in your butt and didn't provide you anything. You'd probably, unfortunately,
and didn't like you and didn't want to hang out with you. Exactly.
Yeah, the dog has to like you too. That's kind of the whole point, right?
It's kind of a mutual thing.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Blind Chick. We hope you really enjoy these episodes as we do a lot of work behind the scenes to get them prepared. You've been listening to Joel Schneider from Soul Dogs, and make sure that you come back next week to hear the second part of this amazing interview between Penn, Moses, and Joel. All right, if you have any questions, please give us a call at 720-712-8856, or you can email us at feedback@aftersight.org. Don't forget to be kind to yourself, be kind to somebody else. It's good for your soul.